I'm looking for help with my money. What should I do?
Mando Sallavanti III is a certified financial planner based out of MassMutual Greater Philadelphia, where he partners with a dedicated team including Timmy Lavelle, Michele Ednock, Aggie Vermac.
Because the best way to grow your business is to do a really good job with the work that's on your desk right now.
Mando made a mark as the youngest ever Blue Chip Council qualifier in the company's history. His notable accolades include security titles such as Rookie of the Year and New Advisor of the Year in 2021.
The biggest challenge that I see coming up over and over again is that people know how to make very good one-off decisions, but what people don't necessarily know how to do, to no fault of their own because they're not a professional, is understand how these decisions work together to build a great plan.
Most recently, he was named MMGP's 2023 New Wealth Management Advisor of the Year.
Now I change. But if we can accelerate that and make that change before that pain is really that big, we're going to have a much higher chance of success.
With a primary focus on serving individuals in the tech, sales, or SaaS sectors, Mando has skillfully leveraged LinkedIn as a pivotal tool in his professional journey, boasting an impressive following of over 22,000 individuals.
Why did you get into this? What steps did you take to get into this? What advice would you give me if I want to get into this? What should I know? What should I avoid?
Hey, I'm your host, Gabe Marusca with the Nomad Solopreneur Show. Quick one before the episode starts. About 80% of you watching, you didn't hit that follow or subscribe button. If you get any value from this, if the stories we share and the learnings that you get from my guests help you or your business in any way, can you please do me a favor and hit that follow or subscribe button? It helps the show more than you can even imagine, and the bigger the show gets, the better the guest gets. Thank you so much and enjoy the episode. Mando, what does football, medical school, sneakers, personal training, and financial planning have in common?
Each one of those played some role in my past and present a little bit, but they were all a part of my journey, man. They were all a part of my journey.
What fascinates me about it is the fact that you pivot so often and you try so many things until you finally find your calling. When that happened?
It's interesting because I look back and there was all of these different things. I went from, I'm going to go to school to be pre-med. Then I started focusing on football. Then I was reselling sneakers. Then I was personal training as well. And then I got into finance, and I look back and there's these 5 different things that I went through. But throughout the time that it happened, I never really thought of it as these things. It was more so just leaning into my curiosity, leaning into the things I was naturally good at. So the first one with going on the track to become a doctor and being a pre-med student, my father was a family doctor. My entire life, I pretty much looked up to him and wanted to follow in his footsteps. So that led me to that track. Then with football, I was always a great football player. Did that through high school, went on and did it in college. And I started to see there might have been some opportunities to play professionally. So I leaned into that. The next thing with sneaker reselling, I always collected sneakers. And one of my best friends, Jarrett, was reselling sneakers and building a business there. I saw him doing it. He encouraged me to start doing it. That led to that. And lastly, with personal training, I was always very into working out. And that naturally came from football, lifting weights and training and all of that stuff. So being someone who was in pretty good shape and still is, people would come to me for advice. And eventually so many people were coming to me that I was just like, I need to charge something for this. So each of these things naturally happened. And getting into finance, you know, it's funny, Gabe. I think finance is probably the one thing out of those 5 that was not natural for me. I've always been very good with numbers, but my move into finance was very calculated. So what I mean by that, and I know I'm rambling a little bit here, but it's flowing for me right now. When I decided I wasn't going to do those other things, I sort of got to this point where I was at a standstill of, what do I do right now? Where do I go? And my father, with the network that he had, he started referring me out to people to learn about their careers. I spoke with his financial advisor, and that's what got me into this path. So I'm really glad this is the path I settled on. 4 years ago, I started, and my business is successful and it's doing very well, and it's only going to grow from here. But I don't think I ever really put this connection together. All of these things were just curiosities that I naturally leaned into. And this one was something I almost forced my way into, but now it's become my passion.
What I love about your journey is even that you try so many things, you didn't get stuck. And even if that you had that small moment, you still knew that it's something there that it's in for me. You didn't know what until you start talking with people. And that I think is something underrated. Asking others about their careers, why they are doing that, what made them follow their path, and so on. And something that I love about this podcast, because I have so many interesting conversation with people like you that follow a different path than myself. And I always envision what could that be for me if I choose that path. And full disclosure, I have no idea about financial planning. Like, I have an accountant that is doing all these things for me. And when it comes to my personal finances, it's a bit of a struggle. And I assume it's the same for a lot of people listening. What would be your advice for them if they're in a situation where financial planning is just a big name that they have no idea what that means? What is financial planning?
At its core, let's say you were a potential client of mine and we sat down and you said, Mando, I'm looking for help with my money. What should I do? The process that I'm going to take any prospective client that comes to us through is something that someone can do for themselves. And why I say that, everybody can't necessarily afford to hire a financial planner. Everybody might not be in the position that they're ready to work with one, even if they could afford one. So the process I think you need to go through is this. Really define, what does my current life look like? I would get it out on paper. What income am I making? What accounts do I have? What debt do I have? What is the current state of my situation? From there, don't worry about anything in between, but look forward, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and say, what do I want my desired reality to be? So I have my current reality, but here's my desired reality. What do I want that to be? Once you understand what that is, that then should become a decision filter for you, that every financial decision you make is either moving you further or closer to that desired reality. Now, it gets more difficult than that. I'm very much so simplifying it down. In between, there's going to be specific decisions you'll need to make that you may need to lean on people like myself or your accountant or maybe even an attorney in some cases. But at its core, essentially what we're doing is defining today, defining where we want to be, and then understanding how do we bridge the gap between that.
And speaking of that gap, so since a lot of people that are listening are solopreneurs or they are trying to make more than they are making today, how they can easily bridge that gap with the help of putting their financing in order?
So if more income is the first goal, like maybe I imagine there's people listening who they might be in a situation today and they might know what they need to do with their money, but they might not just have enough money yet. So if you're in that case, I think the best thing you can do is figure out, how can I increase my skills? So let me tell you about my first year in business. I think this will be helpful for people. I was very much so in that position. It was my first year. I haven't made a lot of money yet. I didn't really know where to go with my finances. I had goals of, I want to invest in real estate and I want to buy a house and do these other things, but I wasn't there yet. So I really leaned on mentors at first. I leaned on reading books. Books are not expensive. You can buy a book for $20 in American dollars. So I would read books. I would lean on my mentors and ask them questions to avoid mistakes. And then once I made a little bit of money from that, I actually went out and hired coaches, and coaches on specific things, specific skill sets, whether it was social media or maybe just a coach that was specific to the industry I'm in. The reason I did that, they would teach me skills that I didn't have otherwise. And now I can use those skills in my day to make more income. So if you're at a point where you might not have the income that you need, I would highly recommend that you try to increase the skills that you have that are directly related to the income you produce.
Love that advice. And that's a shortcut in life. You can learn from the path of others, from the expertise of others, without doing the same mistakes, without doing the hard things of learning by yourself. And for me, it's always the questions why people don't do this, why they don't invest in themselves, why they don't invest in a mentor, in a coach, and so on. Of course, as you mentioned, sometimes you cannot do that, but you can lean on books, which are the unsung mentors of most of us at the beginning. And who was the biggest mentor for you until this point?
I think it all starts with my parents, for sure. I'm very fortunate that I was born to a middle class family in America, and I didn't have to take on debt to go after my dreams. And because of that, I realized how fortunate and lucky I am that I was put in this position. But beyond that, my parents taught me a couple things that were foundational in any success I had. Number one, I can remember from being a kid, my mom drilled in my head from being a little kid, you are kind to everybody, no matter what, because you never know who someone will become. You never know what you will need from someone. You never know when you're going to be the person that's down on your luck and you're going to need someone to be kind to you. And as a kid growing up, I would just roll my eyes at her. But as I get older and more mature, I realize I am so lucky that someone drilled that in my head from the beginning of time that I could remember. The second thing, I realized that when you from my father's a family doctor, he's basically a primary care doctor. People go to him. If you're sick, he's the guy you call. From my dad, there's power in having a career where you can bring true impact to people. And why I say that, we would go to restaurants around our town growing up, and I'm a little kid, and I'm with my parents and my sister. And when we would leave restaurants, we couldn't leave for 45 minutes because every table on the way out in the town would stop my dad and talk to him. And then they would pull me aside and they'd say, "You don't understand what your dad has done for my family." And I'm like a little kid and I just want to go home and play video games. But I'm seeing the way these people react to my father. And again, same thing as the lesson from my mom. As I got older, I realized these people talk to me this way and look at my dad this way because of the impact he's had on them. So when you talk about mentors, my mom and my dad, they were those two first mentors that I don't think I ever realized they were until I got older. And those two lessons have been foundational to build on many more skills now in my financial planning practice.
That's beautiful. And parents in general, they are such an underrated mentors indeed, because we learn from them without even realizing until, as you mentioned, at a later stage in life. And what's powerful about it is grasp those learnings at the beginning of our life. And those learnings usually stay with us for the rest of our life. And of course, we can improve them or change them depending on how good those learnings are. And in your case, the thing that rings a bell is that part of impact. And we often don't realize how important it is for any business to have a positive impact on others. And anyone that is complaining that their business is not successful, they should probably ask themselves, what impact I had today on my clients or my customers? What can I improve? What can I change? And speaking of that, how you navigate this, how you make sure, apart from hiring coaches, working with other mentors and so on, make sure you continue improve and deliver and get that outcome for your clients.
I love this question, Gabe, because I think, on a quick sidebar before I answer it directly, I love this question because I think a lot of people, when it comes to growing their business, they try to think about what's the best sales funnel? What's the best marketing strategy? How should I ask for referrals? And it's not about that, because the best way to grow your business is to do a really good job with the work that's on your desk right now. If you do amazing for everyone you work with, you will have so much business coming to you that you won't be able to handle it. So, on a quick sidebar, I just wanted to get that point in, and I love this question because of that. Now, how am I thinking about this, and what am I doing other than investing in myself and going to coaching sessions and courses and other things? I believe the best way to get better at your craft is to directly ask the people who you are serving. I ask my clients at the end of every single meeting, was this helpful today? It's a very simple question. If any of my clients are listening to this, they're probably laughing because I ask it ad nauseum. They know it's coming every single time, and we still talk about it. But I get the real feedback from them. If there's something that we didn't hit on or they need to get done, they will tell me when I ask that question, and we will get to that. But also, whenever I start a meeting, the meeting starts with, what's top of mind today for you, that if we could just accomplish that one thing, your life is going to be a little bit easier. Now, I have my agenda, but if there's something more pressing, we need to get to that. So I make that point at the beginning of every meeting because that will lead me down a path that will help support them better. But I make sure and I check in at the end of every meeting to say, what was helpful about this? Was this helpful? Is there anything we're not covering? So getting that consistent feedback, every client interaction is very important to be able to serve them as good as I can as time goes on.
What I love about that is the fact that you ask not only some powerful questions, but some questions that I think any consultant or coach should ask. Because at the end of the day, you're part therapist. You need to understand what actually is going on in their life, in their business, in order to be able to help them with their finances. Otherwise, it's almost impossible to help them. And those are powerful questions. And yeah, I totally agree that there is no better way to help someone that actually understand them. And
Like,
fast.
Gabe, think about this. Not to cut you off, but I want to make this
Please.
point because this is really good. Think about this. Let's say you're my client and we're coming into a meeting today to talk about some investment strategies and some tax strategies that we had touched on in the past. And I just come on the meeting and start going into that stuff. And by the end of the call, we get to the end of it, and you're like, Mando, this is all great, but I got laid off today, or my business, I just lost my biggest client. Well, everything we just talked about doesn't matter. So that's why that initial question is so important because, hey man, I have an agenda today. But before I get into my agenda and derail the conversation, what do you want to make sure that we touch on today? Those types of things are going to come up. And I think when you're a service-based business owner, in my case, being a financial planner for my clients with my team, those things are important because life happens and that will completely change the way the service is provided.
Exactly. Good point. Good point. And love that you brought that up because indeed, what it was true yesterday isn't true today. Things can change so fast in our world that you never know. So starting with that question is powerful. And there are any other specific questions or points that you bring up in your meetings that those listening can learn from them in order to make sure that if they do their own financial planning, they can touch on that point without overlooking it?
A question I ask often is, what is your biggest challenge right now? And it's very simple. It's not like it's a groundbreaking question, but I think asking yourself when you look at your finances, what really is my biggest challenge? So we talked about understanding what current reality versus desired reality was before. The gap in between that we need to bridge, really identifying what are the challenges or what is the challenge that's preventing me from getting across there, and seeing them so you can identify this is what I'm facing. That could be very empowering because then you could say, okay, is this something I could figure out myself? If it's not, that's when you go and get someone like me or get another professional where they might come into play. So answering that question will help lead you down the right road.
Love it. And what's the most common challenge that you can see in your clients and how you overcome that?
The most common challenge that I see isn't necessarily that people don't know what to do. People have information everywhere. We know this now with the internet and social media and YouTube. Information is everywhere. So people can go online and they could figure out how to make a good one-off decision. So for example, like maybe they open an account or they invest in real estate because they did research and they saw this was a good move and there's benefits to this for them. And over the years, they do this with multiple things and they might have made, 20 different decisions over the years. But now they wake up one day and it's, I have this decision, that decision, this one, that one, this one. But there's no real way that these are working together. There's no cohesiveness with the financial strategy that they're using. So the biggest challenge that I see coming up over and over again is that people know how to make very good one-off decisions, but what people don't necessarily know how to do, to no fault of their own because they're not a professional, is understand how these decisions work together to build a great plan.
I like that. And indeed, we often think that having access to all the information in the world in our palms, basically, we can't do anything alone. But that's often not the case. And it's a reason why information is cheap and execution is not, because that matters. Not, okay, I know how to do this, I'll do it myself. And I don't know, 1 month later, you're still in that position. And of the position, at what moment you find out that people arrive to you with the biggest pain? Because I felt like someone needs to have a certain amount of pain in order to ask for help.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the most people come to my team when they've tried to do it for themselves long enough and realize that it hasn't worked out, or they've worked with someone in our industry and had a bad experience. And they're looking for someone to help them because they know they need help, but the person that they were working with or people they were working with did not give them the experience that they needed. So those two scenarios I'd probably say are the two most common. Now, one of the things I love about content creation, I can amplify and accelerate that pain through the content I'm creating so I could help people feel these things before they're past that point. Because a lot of times, what people do, and I think this is why they hold themselves back, they won't make a change until that pain is so big that the pain of staying the same is bigger than the pain to change. So now I change. But if we can accelerate that and make that change before that pain is really that big, we're going to have a much higher chance of success. So through content creation, through marketing, I try to help people feel what that pain is before they get to that point, and so we can get ahead of it.
I like that, and the specific, because the thing is that usually people think when it comes to marketing that we try to persuade others to work with us, but in reality, we try to make them aware of the fact that they can avoid a certain problem before it's happening. And what I can say, man, I love the consistency of your content. I love the fact that you stick to that and you grow so freaking fast on LinkedIn. And I think there are a lot of lessons that you'll learn along the way to arrive at this point, because it's not easy. It's so many people are start to post on LinkedIn, and especially in your field. How did you overcome that, and how you reach this? I think you have now over 20,000 subscribers, followers.
When I first started, truly I was held back for almost a year and nervous to put myself out there because I thought about the more experienced people in my field and people who are in their 50s and even in their 60s, because my industry, it's an older age if you look at the average. Now I'm 25. I think the average age of what I do for as a financial advisor, it's 55, I believe.
Wow.
So my first thing, I was very insecure about what are these traditional advisors going to say about me? What are they going to think about me? So the first step and the first roadblock I got past was I'm not posting content for them. I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to the people I want as clients. So that was the first step. Second, I needed to develop a system because through my day to day, I'm having calls, I'm having meetings, I'm taking care of things behind the scenes to plan for clients. I don't necessarily have time to sit down every morning and write a post out. So getting consistent with content creation was very important for me. So now what I do is every Sunday, I'll sit down on the weekend and I'll write out my post for the week. And that helps me make sure that I'm consistent because I know that's my day for content. It's all done for the week ahead. All I need to do is keep that promise to myself. So those are the first two things. And after that, the last sort of key to being consistent and seeing the growth, it's interacting with other people, man. I mean, I think A lot of people know, hey, you have to be commenting on social media because that's what's going to get you seen by people. And that's what gets people to then go look at your profile. And that's how you get your name out there. Well, where people go wrong and where they burn out, I think that they just take this to the extreme and they comment on anyone's stuff and they go to any content. I don't do this. I only interact with content that I truly enjoy reading. So, Gabe, I'll interact with your stuff. I like reading your content. I enjoy what you post. And because everyone else that I'm engaging with, that I'm commenting on their stuff, I enjoy reading it and I'm getting value out of it. It's easy for me to be consistent because every day when I go on, yes, I'm doing it for marketing and to further my business and to put my name out there, but I'm also getting value out of the stuff that I'm reading. So that's a step that I think a lot of people don't really think about.
I love that. And first of all, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. And the admiration, it's mutual. Every single time when I see your post, I know that something valuable is coming out. And not only on the financial planning aspect, but as well on your journey or inspiring by you. Because people often think that if you put content, you should always post only about your expertise and so on. But drawing to your story, to your upbringing and so on, that can actually make you more likable. You can resonate better with that person. And that's one of the reasons why I love so much your post, because you're authentic. You're not just, I don't know, another person that is creating content on LinkedIn. And for those that are new at this, and now with the competition so high, and apart from touching on those 3 points, what other things do you believe they are essential nowadays in order to actually not only grow your following, but actually making a living through content creation?
I think off of the point that you just made, Gabe, it's the perfect advice for anyone starting. Naval Ravikant, who is a very famous entrepreneur, he says, nobody can be you better than you can be you. And that is your biggest advantage. That is the best advice for business, for content creation, for marketing that I can possibly relay. Because yes, you need to talk about your expertise and demonstrate that in a tasteful and entertaining way, but you also have to show people who you are. Because at the end of the day, in what I do with financial advice, no one going on LinkedIn expecting to read financial advice on what they should change with their finances today. Now, will they get a couple tips from me? Will they see a couple things that spark an idea for them? Absolutely. But they're not going to read my post thinking Mando is about to tell me the exact thing to do with my situation. They're reading my posts to be entertained. They're reading my post to maybe learn a thing or two or change their mindset. And they also want to see a little bit more about me. And that goes the same for any creator that you insert into that thought process. People are reading your stuff because you are you. Otherwise, they would go to ChatGPT or they would go to Google and they could type in for whatever information they want to read about. They wouldn't be on social media otherwise. It's social media. Think of it like a networking event. Think of it like being in a coffee shop. You should want to show that personal side of you. And I'm not saying you need to share everything, but I think that integrating that and being able to relate it to what you do is a very powerful force. And really, that's the backbone of any social media success that I've had.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if we don't tap into our own story, into our own life, and as you mentioned, you don't have to share everything, just something that is relatable, just something that makes you, and everything else after that, it's much more easier. Rather than trying to become someone else, copy someone other person that you think they are successful, they are doing well or something, just be you. And I think it's this just be you, it's probably way to use, but in an essence, is all that you need. Of course, you have to learn the skills of writing or being on video and so on, but all those things came with time and with practice and so on. And speaking of video, I noticed that you start posting video as well. What was the impact of that when it comes to building even a stronger connection to your audience?
I've always felt like video was a natural form of communication for me. I've just done a lot of public speaking in my life through sports growing up and even throughout college and been that person who is comfortable speaking. I worked with Nasheen Chen last year, early last year. And with Nasheen, I mean, she's an amazing speaking coach. She helped me improve my communication skills significantly. And after that, I'm like, okay, I need to integrate this more. I need to be able to use these skills that Nasheen is showing me and use them to my advantage. So through video, I started working with Danny Del Vecchio, and Danny's been a huge help to me for efficiency with video creation. But the main reason that I wanted to integrate video into my strategy and overall social platform is because the more senses that we can integrate into our marketing, I think the more people are likely to trust us. So think about this, Gabe. If you have two people and one of them only posts text content and one of them posts text and video, and they do the same service, you are likely going to be more comfortable working with the person who is posting videos. Well, why? Because if I go to book a call with that person, I already know what they're going to sound like. I already know that Mando talks with his hands because he's Italian and that's just what Italians do. So you're going to get on a call with me. It's going to feel like you already know me. So through video, I saw that as a very powerful force, and I started seeing it because the people that would book calls from the get-go, from the first second that we start talking, I could see they're just comfortable. Their shoulders are back. We're having a conversation as if we talked 10 times before and we'd never spoken. So I think video can accelerate your sales process as a service-based business owner because people come in with a level of rapport already built in another way of thinking about it.
Indeed, that's the case. You cannot build a connection before you actually talk with that person without video. Of course, writing is amazing and so on and such. You can post pictures, but if you never heard that person speak or saw them on videos and such, it's so hard after that. You probably jump on a call and you need 10-15 minutes to actually get comfortable and be able to open up or have something to say. And yeah, working with the best. That's how you do it. Like you progress, you start investing in yourself. And not to mention, you guys at Mando, as he mentioned, you were on stage, did public speaking before, but you still hire someone to get help. And that's the thing with what you're not only the best at, or what you are not, again, probably confident to do so, just work with someone. And speaking of working with someone, man, someone comes to you and I want to see how you address one objection because you mentioned something earlier when it comes to someone that worked with other financial planners in the past and they had a bad experience. I think that a lot of those listening can relate to this. For example, in my industry, that happens almost all the time. Anyone got screwed by another marketer or something. How you address that objection when it comes to your case?
Well, I think one way that gets addressed not directly is that at the end of every first call that I have with someone that inquires, I take a minute and I say, "Look, I feel like I understand you. I feel like I understand where you're at today, what your challenges are, and where you're trying to go. Let me just take a minute, spit this back to you, make sure I'm understanding what that is, along with what your expectations of me are. And if I'm missing anything, just fill in those gaps. Is that cool if we do that?" So, Gabe, I take a minute and do that every single initial call that I have. And it's very powerful for two reasons. Either they're going to come back and say, "Oh my God, that is exactly what I said. That is exactly what I need. Like, you get me." And even if they've had a bad experience in the past, I imagine that typically happens because that person serving them didn't understand them from all angles. So if I do, they can immediately dissociate me from that bad experience. Second, if I miss something, they're going to be able to then tell me like, "Oh, well, like you missed this," or maybe they thought of something additional and then they're like, "Oh, I need to also tell you this. I forgot this." So now I have a full understanding of their situation and I'm asking them this before I've even talked one word about what I do. And I take every single client engagement to go through that first because the reality is the service I'm going to provide is going to completely change and mold based on all of that. And I think that gets out in front of the bad experience objection, because it's really hard for someone to think they're going to get a bad experience with a service provider when they think that service provider completely understands them.
That's really powerful. And not only because you make sure that you understand them correctly, but if you speak back to them exactly what they say, they will not only feel understood, but they are, as you mentioned, in the right hands at someone that I can actually help them and be their financial planner. And speaking of financial planning and services you can offer them, what are those specifically?
Let's think about if we're going to build a house. When you go build a house, there's an architect who draws up the blueprint, and then this is the blueprint for how the house is going to be built. And then you have your contractor and all of their workers. And they come in and the contractor builds the house with their subcontractors and all of these people that they build up the house to actually exist. The first way that we work with our clients is we are going to give them the blueprint. So you have current reality today, you have desired reality in the future. We're going to give you the blueprint to get across from current to desired. That's the first step. Where we really provide value, in my opinion, is afterwards, where we become this contractor like person or like team for our clients. Because when we're in that role, we're actually helping clients implement the things that the blueprint is dictating. And we're not just saying, here's the blueprint, go have fun, figure it out. We're actually walking through and getting on meetings with them, getting on phone calls, doing paperwork with them if we need to be able to implement things for the plan. And then along the way, we'll meet with them ongoing. So we meet with almost all of our clients every 3 to 4 months. And throughout those meetings, they're very important because we'll have specific check-ins that we're coming to those meetings for. And we'll look back and say, what have we not implemented yet? And this holds us accountable. This holds the clients accountable. So every year we're revisiting the blueprint, we're revisiting the actual plan itself. And then throughout the year, we're becoming this contractor role where we're actually implementing the things that the blueprint dictate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, make perfect sense. And what I would like to ask you is, if one person comes to you and once they see the blueprint and you help them apply that, and at what stage, because I feel there for any service, there is a certain stage when you cannot help them anymore. Is that the case with financial planning or it's an exception?
I don't think it's the case with financial planning. I think our clients, they can get help from us indefinitely. Because here's what the unique thing about financial planning is. Let's say I'm working with, or our team is working with a young couple, and maybe they don't have kids yet. Maybe it's, hey, we're starting our careers, we're making good money now, but we want to buy a house. So in the beginning, what we're setting up is we need to set the foundation. We need to have enough savings. We need to have our budget down. We need to get investments going. We need to have this fund that's going to pay for our home's down payment. So now we work towards these things and we get to that point. They buy the house. Well, now they have a house and we need to totally revamp what we're doing because that changes things. There's going to be expenses that come with the house. There's going to be changes to taxes that the house brings into play. There's going to be a new budget. So now we need to adjust there. Now we're in the house, we have a kid. Well, now you have a kid. Now you need to worry about, do I have enough life insurance? Is my family going to be okay if my income stops? Are we paying for college for our child? And as time goes on, just as two examples there, life changes, things happen, and also money changes. So you get a promotion at work, you're making more money. Maybe you lose your job, you're making less money. There's always going to be new goals and new challenges that come up with financial planning, not to mention, no matter what country you're in, tax laws change. Laws in general change. And even if your financial situation stays status quo and that doesn't change, you will need to adapt based on the changes in the law. We're bringing that to our clients with the ongoing proactive advice.
I love that. And the reason why I ask you, because I want to pivot a bit the conversation for those that are probably planning to be one, aspiring to be a financial planner. At the end of the day, it's not only business podcast, but one that can shape careers. Because someone that is listening now and they're like, I would love to be like Mando. I would love to have a pivot in my career and change things. What will be the roadmap for them? To start talking with someone that is in that position, or do some due diligence and start researching by themselves? What will be your advice?
I think a combination of both. How I got into this was getting a mentor. And I didn't know he was a mentor of mine when I first started talking to him, but it began as, why did you get into this? What steps did you take to get into this? What advice would you give me if I want to get into this? What should I know? What should I avoid? Starting there and asking people who are already in the industry, that's going to be the best place to start. And it might sound daunting to do that, but I would encourage anyone who might be in that position, go on LinkedIn, reach out to someone, reach out to me. If you're an aspiring financial advisor and you reach out to one, if you reach out to 10, I would be very shocked if not only one of them responds to you, but multiple of them responds to you and gives you at least a little bit of advice. Some of them might even take the time to have a phone call with you. And I know this because I did that when I started my career, and a bunch of them were generous enough to take time with me. Even today, I'm taking time to do that for some aspiring financial planners myself. Now, I can't do it with everyone who asks, but you never know when I get the right message at the right time. I'm driving in the car and I say, hey, man, what's your number? I'll call you right now. I'm just driving anyways. And boom, 15 minutes, I give that advice. I help them. They're happy. They go on with their life. So I think the best way, whether it's being a financial advisor or any career, it's figuring out who can I learn from that's already doing that.
That's one of the best advice I heard. And the reason is we often think that others in the position that we dream to be, they're not willing to answer us. And I have a quick example as well from my own journey when it comes to the podcast. I reached out to Chris Do. Probably heard about him. And at the beginning, I was a bit scared. I was like, he will maybe just ignore me. He's at a totally different level, have probably a lot on his plate. He's gonna answer me to be on the show? No chance. But still, I was like, what can I lose? And I did that, and he said yes. And as they say, the rest is history. So you never know when someone answers you. And what's faster or better way to become someone or to go on a certain path than actually asking someone that already is on that path or arrive at the destination that you want to go. Let's imagine a world where you work alone. Solopreneurship is such a thing right now. Will you still be able to do this? How will you structure everything if you don't have your team by your side?
If I didn't have my team, my clients would be getting a worse service. I would be spread thin. I would probably be burned out. Gabe, I tried to do this for myself for 3 years. 3 years doing it myself, and I built some success, but I hit this level and I was just like stuck. Like I can't get past this level. I was stuck there for 3 years. And it was because I tried to do too much on my own. So instead, what I did, I joined with 3 partners. I also hired an assistant who is amazing and has transformed the way my business runs. And with them, we are looking to still continue to build this thing out. But when you work with Mando, I don't want it to be, I'm working with Mando just because I like this guy. I want it to be, I'm working with Mando because, yeah, I like this guy, but I'm working with him because I know his team brings the results. So no matter if you're talking to Mando, Aggie, Michele, Timmy, Nicole, you know that all 5 of us are going to be able to answer your question and give you a confident answer in what you do. Because I'm only one person at the end of the day. I mean, this is like a sort of not so funny example, but Gabe, what if I was hit by a bus today? All my clients are out in the dark now and they have no advisor. Now having the team, if I was hit by a bus, which I hope I don't get hit by any buses, knock on wood, but they have an advisor, they have a team. So they know that they're not back to square one. Now that's the extreme example of it, but it's really because when we have a team, We have different levels of experiences. We have different perspectives on things to bring to clients. And because of that, we're able to collaborate. We're able to bring the best possible service. And we all have different roles within the team. We all have different strengths that really mold well together to bring the clients a very good service.
Yeah, that's the thing, because as you mentioned, we have only an amount of time at our disposal, an amount of expertise. And yeah, at the end of the day, you never know. The thing is that when it comes to solopreneurship, a lot of time people think that they have to do it alone. And sometimes you do, like you, with partners. Other times you can have contractors and so on. And why not become a full-blown entrepreneur and build the entire business around it? There's no perfect solution. And that's what I love about what you said. Be creative. Find either your business partner or your contractor or your assistant, someone to help you, because yeah, we have just 24 hours in a day and we cannot do everything alone. And where people can get in touch with you?
I think if you give people too many places to go, they don't go to any of them. So I will tell you to go to LinkedIn, Mando Sallavanti III, and send me a connection request there. Follow me there. That's the best place to get me.
And for anyone listening, to wrap things up, I would love to ask you, if they are thinking about their own financial future, what's the first thing they can make in less than 1 week to put their finances in order? Of course, apart from contacting you. That should be the advisable one.
So if you're a United States resident, I could work with you. Contact me. Would love to do that. But regardless of where you are, this is some advice that can help you if you feel like you just can't get a handle on your money. Your budget and compare it to your income. So if your income is here and your budget shows that your expenses should be here, there's this amount that should be left over. Now, for most people, that amount that should be left over is not actually left over, and they're wondering, where the heck is this money going? Because I should have this, but I don't. Advice that I often will give clients is to set up a separate savings account, and every single month, that dollar amount that should be left over, auto deposit that to the separate savings account, because this is going to put you in a position where one of two things will happen. Either the money, I don't know how I just did that with balloons, but either on that point, either the money will go there and you won't feel it. So you'll be saving that money. And then later on, you can take that money and allocate it to different investments and whatnot that makes sense for your situation. Or you're going to need to dip into your actual savings account because too much money went over there. So then in the future, you can adjust that number. But what you can do in the course of 3 or 4 months of doing that process, you should be able to find the dollar amount that truly should be left over every month if you are not overspending. And once you have that, you can automatically deposit it to investments or to other things that need to be taken care of in your financial situation. And when you get to that point, you have a lot of clarity on your financials. And I think with financial planning, like many things, clarity precedes success. So if we have clarity, it's a lot easier to walk the path that we need to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you don't know where your money are going, you won't have them. You simply end up at the end of the month and you realize like, all right, my expenses are not that much. Why I don't have anything left? And that was powerful advice. And hopefully those listening start applying that. Thank you so much, Mando, for joining us today. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on, and can't wait to put the video out there for everyone to listen and watch it.
Thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it.
You, yes, you're one of the few that stick to the end. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing so. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so below. And if you got any value from this, please share it with a friend. They might got some value from it as well. Thank you so much, and until next week, pura vida!